Good morning. Welcome to the March 6th meeting of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Today, we're going to have a briefing from the local school district, MCPS, and then we'll be having a hearing on one bill, and we have two other pieces of legislation to take up today. So why don't we first turn it over to our special guest from MCPS. We have with us Superintendent Thomas Taylor and President of the Board of Education, Grace Rivera Oven. And I'll turn it over to you two and your team for your remarks. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I will let Dr. Taylor go first.
Well, good morning, everybody. It was a pleasure to see many of you yesterday, although from afar and waving from your balcony as we celebrated two of our schools receiving blue ribbon recognition. That was such a lovely presentation, and just want to echo our thanks to the delegation for your support of the school system and in particular those schools. I do have just a couple of quick updates. The Board of Education has adopted their budget and has moved that on to County Council for consideration. The executive is poised to make his budget recommendation next week. So of course we are anxiously awaiting that piece of the puzzle. We would like to thank the delegation in support of our budget. We know that a lot of our state budget assumptions are tied to the governor's budget, and that reflected an increase, which I know that you all support, largely tied to our community schools work and the expansion of community schools. So just know that your local school system appreciates the hard work that you are doing in Annapolis to make a great many things happen. We would also like to echo our thanks for your support of our calendar bill. We know that this is fraught with a lot of issues and challenges, and we just want to thank you for helping to bring the state of Maryland into the 21st century and acknowledge some of the outdated practices that may be considered arbitrary and capricious, and that our focus is just on this, student learning and achievement. And we think that we are well poised to see gains again for the second year in a row on state assessments, along with other things, despite our lengthy winter inclement weather breaks. We are making some adjustments in response to preparing for next year's calendar. We have an adopted calendar, but we will be making some tweaks around the edges. I think one of the challenges that we face with the calendar, in particular in Montgomery County, that is different than other localities who are less diverse than we are with less diverse interests, is that we honor and value the religious observances of our community, that we do not marginalize our students for their beliefs, and that we hold that valuable. And as a consequence of that, it does mean that we take off certain days in the year. That does present a challenge, and it does present some constraints. And we would like to thank you for recognizing that, honoring that, and lifting up our kids and their families as they celebrate important family observances and religious observances. The last thing I want to touch on is a little difficult for us. We are reassessing a lot of things tied to school safety in our community. As many of you know, and just about everybody has reached out to me individually, and I thank you for that, in support of our community as we navigate the wake of the Wooten school shooting. We're taking a hard look at what makes a great and successful and safe school environment, how we can be welcoming and also safe in our secondary schools and elementary schools. And we will have some recommendations for some changes that may turn into legislative priorities in the future. And I just want to just say once more how much this is a team effort, and that having you as partners and teammates has made a significant difference already. We look forward to the work ahead, although it may be significantly challenging as we address some of these challenges head on. Please know that we are also working with your Senate colleagues to fulfill the Board of Education's legislative priorities and the things that you all have endorsed as well. So thank you very much for that, and I'll pass things off to the board president, who I know has some additional comments, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Good morning again. As many of you know, my name is Grace Rivera-Oven, and I am the current president of the Board of Education. I represent District 1. I know all of you are very busy this morning, so I'm just going to jump right to it because I know your time is precious. So really here to ask for your support for 3 bills that are very important to us. And I hope that we could have your support. So I'm just going to go through them as quickly as I can. And as Dr. Taylor said, then if you have any questions, please let us know. So the first is House Bill 1438, which is sponsored by Delegate Warman. So it has been 7 years since Maryland has lastly perform a very deep dive review of our graduation requirements. To put that in perspective, 7 years ago, the blueprint did not even exist. And we did not go through a pandemic. Back in 2019, a task force was formed and recommended changes that were only just now seen and we're just now fully implementing. The class of 2025, which was last year's seniors, were the very first students to graduate under these standards. These included moving from 21 to 22 credits, increasing math to 4 credits, and shifting technology credits toward computer science. But there's a problem. The world is moving faster than we are, and we are hearing directly from many of our students that these requirements are a bit outdated and disconnected uh, from the career path that they want to pursue today. We shouldn't have to wait for an emergency or another decade to pass before we check in our standards. So House Bill 1438 will implement a regular recurring review process. This ensures that a Maryland diploma remains a gold standard by evolving alongside the global economy and the blueprint goals rather than reacting to them years later. 2, this would be the support for House Bill 29 and Senate Bill 343, which Delegate Wilkins and Senator Nancy King are sponsoring. This is a matter of both equity and also truly fiscal sustainability. Currently, the blueprint requires school systems to pay for every AP and IB exam for college and career-ready students. There is no limit on the number of exams a student can take, and most importantly, there is no income eligibility requirements. So in FY25, our district has spent over $4.2 million on these exam fees. For this upcoming year, we will be expected to probably expend in the climb of 5.5 million or a little bit more. When we look at the data, a clear disparity emerges. Of the 48,000 exams that we paid for last year, only, and I think this is really clear, only 19% were taken by students eligible for free and reduced price meals, our farm kids. That means millions of dollars are being used to cover costs for families who have the means to pay. And we have heard from those families, and many of those families want to pay and contribute, but we don't have the system to do so. Ensuring that every student, regardless of financial circumstance, can participate in rigorous college level learning remains a central priority, not only for this board, but also for MCPS. The priority will be strengthened if we're able to implement a structural tier approach for the AP and IB exams. This will allow us to reach more students while ensuring responsible and equitable allocation of resources. Equitable access to academic programs and opportunities for all students is not achieved through equal financial support to all families. Moving to a needs-based system will allow us to keep the exams 100% free for our families with the greatest financial need, while asking other families to pay a portion of all of the cost. It is a smarter, more equitable way to manage our resources. And finally, number three, this would be House Bill 1084. This is these are very critical and unpredictable weather. Mother Nature, let's just say, did not cooperate this year with us, and that has been an issue. Right now, Maryland law forces a double requirement on us schools have to provide at least 180 days and 1,080 hours of instruction. But as we saw this past school year, those two numbers don't always line up. Despite winter weather closures in 2024-2025 school year, MCPS easily hit the 1,080 hours mark. So we met the mark. But because we completed the 1,080 hours in less than 180 days, as some of you know, our waiver was denied and we were forced to drag everyone back for a 2.5 day in mid-June. So let's be honest about what was the cost of that. We spent over 1.75 million in personal cost, just alone, not even counting the buses, the electricity, security, keeping the buildings running. And for what? Absenteeism was through the roof for both students and staff, we spent essentially nearly $2 million of taxpayer money just box on a calendar. The actual instructional value was almost zero. Note that the Maryland State Department of Education understands the reason and whether data closures have on our school systems across our state. They hear directly from counties about what these disruptions mean for students, for staff, for families, for our local budgets, and so on. In developing a very thoughtful statewide solution, while we strongly support the House Bill 1084, we also welcome conversations about future changes that would provide flexibility without creating additional burdens for our families, for our students, our staff, and for our taxpayers. In the meantime, we look at House Bill 1084, which I know is a bill that will allow MC to comply with the minimum instructional time requirements by meeting either the day or the hour required this year. This gives us the common sense flexibility to focus on the quality, not so much of the quantity, but on the quality of the hours we spend with students rather than the quantity. It is it has it has been seen that when we spend more quality with students, the results academically are much greater. So in closing, these bills represent a commitment to being better stewards of public funds while keeping our eyes on the future of our students. I just want to thank you, all of you, for your time and for your leadership and for your commitment on these issues. And now I will turn it over if there are any questions, and I'm sure Dr. Taylor would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you both for your remarks. And I'll just say on that last bill, in terms of giving more flexibility and making up the snow days, I feel like that was a good partnership between the board and the district and our delegation. On the House side, I was very proud of how quickly we were able to act in this delegation. And thanks to Chair Wilkins, get it moved very expeditiously through the Ways and Means Committee. And also very appreciative of the Speaker's office for making sure that the bill got out of the House very swiftly. So, we are still waiting for the Senate to take up next steps and to schedule a hearing. But notably, the bill has passed our Senate Montgomery County delegation. So hopefully there will be news and action on that side soon. But I just wanted to note that I think we all worked well together on the House side to get that moving and to really respond with the urgency that was needed. Okay, let me turn to questions, and colleagues feel free to use the virtual raise hand function. We'll start with Delegate Kaufman.
Yes, this question, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I have a comment and then a question for Dr. Taylor. President Rivera Oven, I think it's very good to revisit the graduation requirements because I haven't used the mandatory algebra and geometry since the day I graduated high school in 2006. My question for Dr. Taylor is this. In, I recently ran into, and I've heard it from a number of people, an old special educator of mine, and as we were catching up, I said, "Are you still teaching special ed?" And he said, "No, I'm teaching gen ed." And I said, "That's a dagger to the heart." And he said, "It was either that or leave teaching." And then over the years, I've met numerous people who could teach special ed, but are duly certified, so they choose to teach gen ed. And I think when you tried to get duly certified teachers a number of years ago to teach special ed, um, um, very few people took you up on it. So my question is, what can we do to make teaching special ed more appealing? Because many people are opting for gen ed, even though they could teach special ed.
Thank you, Delegate Kaufman. I'll answer this pretty succinctly and just say we need to do a better job of balancing the expectations and workload of our special educators and to differentiate based on what tasks and roles we want people to perform. One of the features in the budget for MCPS right now is relief of some of the administrative burden at the elementary level by having a resource teacher to help with the coordination of IEPs at the elementary level. This is something we have at the secondary level, but not at the elementary level, which is ironic because there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into identification and the lead up support for that. This would be a huge boon for us. We started the school year this year at 99.5% fully staffed, and in special education, over 95% staffed in special education. Those are some of the best hiring numbers that we have, especially since we added a ton of special education positions last year. I think what we're trying to do, at least in Montgomery County, is we're trying to create an environment where special educators feel supported and that they feel seen and that their work is being valued and managed and differentiated based on different roles and expectations.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Delegate Kaufman. Next, Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, also for the work on the calendar bill. I also want to shout out Delegate Wallach for her work on the Eid side of things. I do support that bill. Obviously you need some flexibility here. You're running into some crunches. But I also just have to say, because I'm hearing it from a lot of constituents, that MCPS just needs to do better. You can blame Mother Nature, but Mother Nature's there every year. She participates in the school calendar every year. And so we just need a better performance. And Dr. Taylor, you've explained many times a lot of the complexities. I've heard it from many past superintendents. You actually explained a whole new issue that I had not heard before about, where the teachers are coming forward from, which I really appreciate. But we just have to do better. I mean, I heard about some things on that council briefing about the lack of coordination between the school system and the county. And, I support giving you more flexibility this year. That bill sunsets, so I hope you're planning ahead for future years. Isn't that so?
So I think that there's a couple of things. We do not have the responsibility of clearing streets in the county. There are nearly 5,000 or a little over 5,000 roads that are county maintained in Montgomery County. That being said, the more communication we have, the better. And when we're aware of streets that do need additional clearing or that can't get a bus through, it's absolutely incumbent on us to open the doors of communication and to get that moving. I do think that people sometimes neglect to understand the size and scope of Montgomery County and how there's often very different conditions in one part of the county or another part of the county, and that teachers don't live right next door to the school. Many of our teachers, and we've done a little bit of a heat map to see where our teachers live. They live in areas that are in the north and east and west parts of the county, which are disproportionately impacted by snowfall in our community. And as a consequence of that, if our teachers and staff can't get to school, there is no school. So that is just as much of a function as anything else. I will say that we are going to continue to run into challenges with our calendar, that this issue is not going to go away, and that this is not an issue of Montgomery County simply just doing better. I think that that would be lovely and convenient, but the reality is that we hold a couple things inviolate in Montgomery County that other communities care less about. And as a consequence of that, it creates constraints in our calendar that other communities don't have. And that is the nuance that this delegation took on. And I think you've done a wonderful job of holding up the community's values in that process. I think we're going to continue to face some of these challenges without some real structural safeguards to preserve instructional time, but then also to be pragmatic and to adjust in the moment. Delegate Corman, I think you're absolutely right that every day that we can coordinate better with our partners, we're able to provide a better service to the community. But I just want to add that it is never as simple as it seems in the moment.
Next will be Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Superintendent, thank you for being here, and thank you for the update as well. Also, Gracie, it's good to see you. So here is, can you talk a little bit? I know, Superintendent, we've had some conversations about kind of some of the fighting and the violence in the schools in the past. And you and I have had several conversations about it. But can you update us on what's kind of the standard operating procedure when it comes to phones, social media, fighting? Like and I don't know, Madam President, whether that's you or the superintendent, just kind of update us of. I'd like to hear a little bit about what the current status of policy is.
So I'll do the quick version of this. We made several amendments to our student code of conduct this past year. One of the amendments was a consequence for students who engage in videotaping or filming a physical altercation for distribution on social media. Our schools in the hallways are not public spaces. And as you all know as lawmakers, filming without consent and then distribution on social media in non-public places is actually against the law. So we're sensitive to that, as well as trying to dial back some of the aggression that we've seen from some of our teenagers. We also know that teenagers aren't the best at making decisions all the time. And that the safest schools that we have in Montgomery County are the ones that have a really positive culture and climate, and that there are proactive measures that are being taken to encourage students to resolve conflict proactively versus reactively. But there's also a positive side to this. The national suspension rate for students is around 5%. At the secondary level, it's about 70%. And in Montgomery County, it's 0.2%. So the good news is that when we do have an event, we give it a tremendous amount of serious attention, and we are laser focused on an immediate response. But at the same time, we are beating every metric across the country in terms of the number of events that our kids engage in that cause a significant disruption. I'm proud of that, but one is really too many. And so we really do have to have this idea of aiming for zero and applying both proactive and reactive responses that make a big difference. To be candid, I'm actually a little surprised that some of the changes in our code of conduct haven't had a more significant impact on some of our numbers and our outcome. We seem to be pretty steady, although slight upticks in some of our outcomes in terms of disciplinary consequences in response to some of the things that we've seen. But we'll continue to tweak that around the edges to be a little bit more proactive.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just as a follow-up, the new policy with cell phones and using them for video, how have you been able to communicate that, or how have you communicated that with parents? And the reason I ask is because I very recently had a conversation with a constituent that I found very concerning. And the way the conversation went was this constituent was a parent of MCPS students, and for whatever reason, they got it into their head that they were not allowed to film or use their cameras to video fights because MCPS wanted to ensure that everybody didn't, there was no publication about how violent MCPS schools are. And I tried in as a gentle manner as I possibly could to make sure that they understood that videoing any fights is completely inappropriate. It adds to the violence. It's a pretty disgusting way of dealing with violence. But I do need to stress that this parent, in their head, they thought that the reason that students aren't allowed to video fights is because they didn't want to draw attention to fighting in Montgomery County Public Schools. So I think that's something that you all should know. And I don't know if you've heard this before, or if you have, any kind of policy pieces that you're going to push out to parents to ensure that the truth behind this is a little bit more transparent and a little more easy to comprehend.
That's good to know, and certainly something to noodle on. I will say that we made a pretty significant change to our cell phone regulation this past year, where it is away all day, and that has been met with mixed fidelity. And there's a follow-up expectation that's a little bit of a challenge for some of our high schools to follow through with, and that has been probably more of a challenge than anything else in terms of communication. Like many things, it would not surprise me that when communicating changes to practices at the beginning of the school year, that this, along with 100 other changes, sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, and that the rationale doesn't always come through. But that's a healthy reminder, and thank you, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, for lifting that up.
And thank you for instituting that policy. I think it's a great policy that you're doing, and if there's anything that I can do or we can do to help on that burden or help with miscommunication, please let us know, because I've been pushing for this for the last couple of years, so I really do appreciate it.
Can I just add to David? You and I have had this conversation even before I ran for the Board of Education. We have kids in similar schools, and this has been an issue that for those kids who are filmed and for the parents and so on, the trauma that is out there forever. And we do have cameras in our schools, in our hallways, right? So there's so I guess it pains me to hear that parents feel that this is some kind of cover up, that we don't want people to know. That's not what this is intended to do. This is just like in private schools. This is not allowed at all. And it has to be with also the when you and I talked about this a few years ago, there used to be even a channel that the kids created where they were encouraged to have fights so they can download these fight films. And what we're trying to do is we're trying, as Dr. Taylor said, young people, they don't make the best decision. And long-term consequences of these, they don't see that. And as adults, we have to step in. I'm sorry the parents feel that this is maybe that we don't want to, folks to know what's going on, but we have cameras in all our hallways, and what we want to do is we want to protect all the kids, including those who are assaulted or aggravated. So anyway, but
Well,
I
you'll be happy to know. You'll be happy to know that I pushed back and asked how they would feel about their child's video being out on the internet for an eternity, to see them getting threatened, beaten up, and then they got very quiet. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Next is Delegate Chi.
You, Madam Chair. Good morning, Superintendent and Chair Irvin, Rivera Irvin.
Yeah, Lily.
So I recently have heard from a lot of parents, whether they are Asian parents who are really fixated about a lot of the school boundary change issues. And because even though Wooten is not technically in our district, we represent a large cluster of families that take great pride in being attached to the Wooten cluster. So I recently had a meeting and heard quite a bit about that. So I would like to, excuse me, have the superintendent maybe give us a quick high level context of where things stand and the major timelines. So I would be better to communicate. I would be better able to communicate. And also, I would like to request some data points just so that we have the facts. And I want to know who is the right point of contact if I want to perhaps send a request either in my name or in the name of District 15 team, if my teammates are willing to do that together as a team, just to request some data, because we do have a lot of families that are quite concerned about this.
Thank you, Delegate. Just very briefly, either Patty or I can serve as your point of contact for data requests. We have a ton of information that's already out, and it may be just synthesizing that and giving it to you. We don't have anything to hide. We are actually at the tail end of a process that is pushing a year and a half in terms of boundary adjustments to accommodate for two buildings that are being added to the portfolio in the county. The first, of course, is Woodward and an expansion, the reopening of Woodward and an expansion of Northwood. The second one is the consideration of a high school building at Crown Farm and the future expansion of Damascus. The board right now in the process, it has entertained a recommendation after 3 rounds of adjustments based on feedback that we've received from the community. In my experience, having done about 6 boundary studies, they are all the same, but yet uniquely different in each one. The part that is all the same is that not everybody will be happy with the outcome. And that there are deeply held beliefs and structures that people are very comfortable with, that they are not pleased with in the final recommendation, but yet in just a few years, these will be the things that people fight to preserve. So I get the consternation. Change is very difficult. We have a number of school communities that are undergoing significant changes, not just the Wooten community, having the relocation of a school, which ironically was something that that community begged for in October, but then is unhappy with the outcome of where we stand today with the final recommendation. I can appreciate that. We are at the final stages where the Board of Education will make a decision on final boundaries and any potential changes that may occur associated with that on March 26th. So the board has 2 public hearings left as a total of 4 on just the boundaries amongst hundreds of other parent meetings that have taken place. And those last 2 public hearings are Monday and Tuesday of next week. They will have a work session following those public hearings, and then they will come to a decision point on March 26th. We would love to provide you with additional information if it would be helpful for you or your constituents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And colleagues, just doing a time check here. I think we're going to close the question queue with the folks who currently have their hands raised. And if we can ask everyone just to keep their questions pretty tight. Next, we'll go to Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Superintendent Taylor and Grace, it's great to see you. I'm going to follow up on Delegate Shee's question about the boundary, the boundary study and the boundary changes. As she stated, even though the Wooten High School is not technically in our district, a whole lot of our constituents do, or the children of our constituents attend that school. And you did answer part of my question, which was the timetable on this. I just want to put out there that, however this goes, there's a big difference in our district for the people from our district from attending a school that's located in the vicinity of Wooten and one that's located in Crown. It is, there's a lot of travel between there. So, that is part of the consternation here, I think, although not all of it. But my question more is about middle schools, because the middle schools, at least in my part of the district, are a little bit of a hybrid. Some go to Churchill, some go to Wooten. I know that that's not unique in Montgomery County, but I just wondered, if the final decision is March 26th, when will those cascading, if you will, decisions be made about what happens to the middle school students and the other schools impacted by any changes?
That's a great question. Really quick for the transportation aspect, for the majority of the folks in that attendance zone, it's actually a shorter commute. The distance between Wooten and the high school property at Crown Farm is a little over 3 miles or 9 minutes by car in traffic. The majority of the district, as it's laid out, is actually has a shorter transportation commute. I recognize that one neighborhood in particular does not have a shorter commute, and that is the nature of boundary studies and changes in general. All of these changes will take effect with a few notable exceptions on the fall of 2027. So there is still a whole school year that will transpire before any changes that the board makes will take effect. The few notable changes are largely tied to the future planned expansion of Damascus. So right now, some of the changes in boundary up in Clarksburg will be delayed until Damascus has the capacity through a reconstruction to absorb those changes. That part of the county is very tight. You may have seen in the legislative newsletter, or you may have even seen on the news that we are a school system that is declining in enrollment. We are down 10,000 students since 2019, which is a fairly sharp decline. However, there are pockets of the county that continue to grow. One of the corridors of growth is in North Bethesda, South Rockville. Another area of growth in the county is the Damascus-Clarksburg corridor. So we're sensitive to that. We are planning for that growth by expanding Damascus and reconstructing Damascus. But that is the only element of this that we are proposing as part of the delay. Ultimately, the board has the timeline to vote on as well. In terms of when it makes all of these changes real. The proposed timeline that we have does grandfather the older students in each campus. So 8th grade students in middle school, 11th and 12th grade students in high school, they would be offered the opportunity to stay at their existing school for that additional year or two. And of course, would also have the option to go with their classmates to their new school as well. I hope that's helpful. Great question, Delegate.
Okay, next we'll go to Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Superintendent, Madam President, it's nice to see you both. Thank you for being here. I have two questions, but I'm just going to focus on one, and maybe Patty, we can follow up later on it. One, I'm hoping this is a quick answer. So if you have a family, I think we've heard a lot from folks around devices, and I know there was a conversation about cell phones. If you have a family who does not want to use the Chromebooks, is it possible for them to turn it back or sort of opt out of Chromebook-based assignments? How how do teachers and schools handle that? And then the second question, which again, I think we can follow up offline. We're doing a lot on background checks, obviously, this year as it relates to the Joint Audit Committee, which I co-chair. And so I would love to have a conversation. I know that sort of got dumped in your lap, and you all had to clean up the mess. But would love to talk to Patty and maybe some other folks within MCPS Central Administration on what you all did to resolve it, get a better sense of it, and whether there were state laws that need to be changed. So I'll take that answer later offline. Maybe we can schedule something next week, but would love an answer on the opt-out with the Chromebooks and how that's handled.
Absolutely. We are no longer a one-to-one school division our school district in terms of Chromebook deployment. This is also yet one more thing complicating our calendar drama from this year and will also play out in future years. Uh, a lot of our students do not use Chromebooks with their regular instruction. However, accessing some materials via the internet is an expectation. We do have a robust learning management system, Canvas, that does serve as a warehouse for a lot of assignments. Um, I think balance is critical here. I don't think that instruction should be delivered entirely through um, a, a computer, and I don't think that it needs to be all paper and pencil either, because we do have to prepare kids for life after high school. So I think that there's a delicate balance that can be maintained there. I would be curious as to what the case by case circumstances are. And I think that our future, I think, relies on not every student using a Chromebook, and especially not a school issued one. Candidly, we're getting to the place where we can't afford it. In terms of background checks, I'm delighted to report. I'm not going to pass up on the opportunity to tell you that every school-based employee in MCPS, minus a couple that are in the makeup queue that we have scheduled, have cleared their background check and have been rebadged and cleared fully. That was quite the ordeal and quite the process. We're growing quite accustomed to cleaning up messes, but we're getting them done one by one, and we appreciate the support. If we identify something at the state level that needs to be changed, we're certainly happy to follow up and would love to have a longer conversation about that as well. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Delegate Acevero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Grace. I'll be very brief, but just want to echo everything that's been said around particularly school boundaries and Wooten. But to the superintendent, Dr. Taylor, I received countless emails from constituents in my district regarding the MBLI public charter in Germantown. And back in January, my office contacted yours, and we were connected with Robin Seabrook from your team. To put it simply, I mean, I found your reply to the email a little bit curt and surprising, a little bit disappointing. But we were uh, basically connected with Miss Seabrook and her assistant, who ultimately provided no response to the questions that we had asked, particularly for the charter agreement that you alleged was violated, the notice of revocation, etc. And the reason why I asked this is because we received several emails from concerned parents in District 39 about the closure of the school and the lack of information that was provided to parents. There are Black and brown students that attended this school. There are parents in our district who rightly so have shared their concerns. And I'm very disappointed that to date I have received no response from your office nor from Ms. Seabrooks to any of the information that we had requested. We have constituents to respond to. We are elected by those constituents. And so I'm confused as to why I couldn't get a timely response from you about something in my district and the closure of a school. My understanding is that action has been taken on the closure of that school. It has not been finalized. And I'm very disappointed that not only did I not receive a reply from your office, but I've received no update whatsoever. And so you essentially have District 39 constituents, parents who are still left without information. The Board of Education, as I understand it, has taken action. I was not privy to that. I still did not receive the information, nor did the parents. And so we've essentially been provided nothing, which I find completely unacceptable for the superintendent of MCPS. And so I'm asking you now on the record, are you going to provide that information to my office so that I can in turn respond to my constituents about the closure of MBLI, the information that we requested, and will that be provided in a timely manner?
Well, thank you very much, Delegate Acevero, and I'm sorry that we didn't provide a timely response. Absolutely, we certainly don't have anything to hide. Our interest is really simple. It is to make sure that that our students are receiving, and these are our students too, that our students are receiving the best quality care that they can. We too hear from a ton of our parents that are connected to MBLI, and there's a mixed response in terms of meeting their needs versus not meeting their needs. There's lots of wonderful things that MBLI brings to the table, and a lot of excitement and enthusiasm behind that. We support that. We think that that part is wonderful, but we also have an agreement, and we have an obligation to withhold follow through with our end of that agreement. And so does the management of MBLI. So we're anxious to provide that for you and for anybody else. We have a tremendous amount of information on our Board of Education board docs as well. That is everything from correspondence back and forth, as well as copies of agreements and whatnot. So I think it would be pretty easy for us to get that to you. I'm very, very sorry that that wasn't provided in a timely manner to you, and I will certainly follow up personally.
I'd appreciate that follow-up. Again, parents waiting for an answer, and these are students in my district whose educations are pretty much up in the air at this point. So I'm not sure why it took so long, but I'm glad that someone from your office or you are going to provide a response so that I can respond to my constituents.
Thank you. Next will be Delegate Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, Superintendent and Madam President. Glad to have you both on today. Madam President, I know we've worked in the past to address the issue of substance use and overdoses in our public schools, and Montgomery County really has been a leader on one particular issue, which is access to Narcan in our schools, and specifically a policy that I believe was instituted last year to allow students who are trained to carry Narcan, which we're now looking. There's legislation to have that be a statewide policy. I'm just wondering on that policy, and then just more generally, how's that policy been working out? Are you seeing uptake from students? And then one specific policy question that I was actually reviewing the policy that you all put out on this last year, and just had a question around what sort of training is required for the students who are carrying Narcan, if any.
Thank you so much for asking about this, Delegate, because candidly, I think that we are in a position to be a model for the rest of the state. And this is an area where we have been a leader, and we're proud to be a leader because this is not difficult to do. All of our administrators, health providers, and security at all of our schools have immediate access to Narcan, are expected to, if they don't carry it on themselves personally, to have speedy access to it close by in the event of an emergency. The training only takes about 10 minutes. This is not a difficult training. Young people can very quickly participate in this training, and although not as widespread to every single student in the district, but to those that have expressed some interest, this is not a difficult thing to do, not a difficult thing to accomplish, and not hard at all to create critical mass to improve safety on your campuses.
Great. And just a quick follow-up here. If a student walks into a building carrying Narcan, do they have to be registered as someone that's approved to carry Narcan? Do they have to be trained, or you just assume that they have that training already?
So we don't have that bureaucratic layer or infrastructure in place where that's necessary. Again, Narcan, to dispel any concerns that may exist in the community, is harmless. And even if it was taken and somebody was not experiencing a fentanyl overdose, there wouldn't be a negative side effect or harm. So the risks are so minimal and the gains are so positive that this is really a life-saving opportunity. And so I think it requires a layer less of scrutiny than some other things. I can get you some details, Delegate Vogel, on what our specific practices and approaches are from a regulatory standpoint, if that would be helpful.
And just to
Thank you
add to that,
both, and thank you, Madam Chair.
oh,
sorry.
That we're not the only ones who do the training. Also, the Department of HHS and Fire and Rescue, they also do trainings. And we just had one last week in the Wheaton area. So, and at least in my district, in an instance, a young person saved another young person's life because they had Narcan on them. So
Thank you, Madam President. I know I owe you a call, so I'll call you back later this afternoon.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues, for your questions. And I think in the interest of time, we're going to have to move on. Sorry, Delegate Wallach, and I know another colleague already lowered their hand. Thank you, President Rivera-Oven and Mr. Superintendent, for being here today. And of course, the delegation knows how to get in touch with both of you if there are additional questions. But thank you again for being here for this informational briefing.
Thank you so much to all of you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next we are going to move on to our next agenda item. We have a hearing today on MC 20-26. And oh my goodness, Ralph, I'm blanking. Which committee did we assign this bill to? Is it in Economic Development? To Metro Washington? Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Chair Miraku North then to preside over the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this is MC 20-26, Special Taxing Districts, Village of Drummond, Authority and Organization, requested by Delegate Corman. Delegate Corman, as you know, you have unlimited time to speak. I believe we have 2 witnesses after Delegate Corman. So Delegate Corman, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I am presenting on behalf of Senator Love, Delegate Wallach, Delegate Warman, MC 20-26. This is an update to the Village of Drummond, which is, I think, a 41 or so home, basically street. That's a special taxing district in District 16. Although there have been some amendments to their charter over the years as part of broader statewide changes, their charter hasn't really been comprehensively reviewed and updated in quite some time. And so they have done the hard work of going through to request updates. And because it's a special taxing district and its unique nature, it requires action by us for them to do those updates. I have had some back and forth with the county trying to address some questions they raised, but I do want to be clear, this does not change the status of the Village of Drummond. It will remain a special taxing district. It doesn't get any sort of additional powers or money from us or money from the county as a result of these changes. This is just mostly technical cleanup. The reason it was rushed is they do have a rotating mayor system, and this has been a priority of the current mayor. So we've been trying to accommodate her agenda and try to get this done this legislative session. So appreciate your support on accepting the late file. And let me turn it over. I think the mayor is still here and also their counsel, Ron Bolt, for any additional points, and then happy to take questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Corman. Mayor Brenner, is it Leifer? Make sure I got that right. You have 5 minutes, and then Mr. Bolt, you have 2 minutes. So I thought I saw the mayor. Oh, there you are. Okay. You can go ahead, Mayor Brenner.
You're still on
You're
mute,
on
Mayor.
mute. You're on mute still. We'll give you a moment. There you go. Nope. There you go. Back on.
Sorry, I was having problems with unmuting.
No
Thank you,
problem.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Delegate Corman, and the rest of the Montgomery House delegation. My name is Liz Brenner Leifer, currently serve as on the Citizens Committee of the Village of Drummond. As mayor, my term is up on May 4. I testify on behalf of the Village of Drummond in favor of MC 2026. The amendments for the village charter would change the name of the governing body from the Citizens Committee to the Village Council and clarify what offices are to exist. They would require fiduciary bonds for officials. They would clarify the purposes for which public funds may be expended. They would add a process for budget adoption and require an annual audit. They would lower the voting age from 21 to 18 and delete the 6-month residency requirement for voter qualification. They would confirm meeting scheduling procedures under the Open Meetings Act and clarify general powers, including maintenance of the street, and raise the competitive bidding threshold from $300 to $15,000 and add customary exemptions thereto. I want to thank Delegate Corman and all the scriveners who edited the draft that we provided to him. The original charter, written in 1916, used very archaic language and style that we edited a lot to make it more readable and understandable. Delegate Corman and his team and all involved went several steps further to edit and organize it and make it clearer and more readable. So the document before you really has considerable edits. And on behalf of the village, I want to thank Delegate Corman, all involved, and scriveners involved who worked so hard on our charter. And I want to ask him to pass on our thanks to the scriveners. Lastly, I just want to conclude by saying I recognize that we may be rather late in the legislative session, and I thank you all for consideration and help in updating our charter. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor Brenner-Leifer. Mr. Bolt, you have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. I serve as counsel to the village. I don't have anything to add. I'm here to address questions if needed, but I just note 2 quick points. Among the list of things that we wanted to update, perhaps the 2 biggest things are deleting the 6-month residency requirement for voting, which I believe, according to case law, is actually unconstitutional. Residency requirements should be only long enough to prevent fraud, but case law provides 6 months is too long. And frankly, the village, wants to promote voting by all residents, so that requirement would be deleted. And also, the charter hasn't been updated in 23 years, and the competitive bidding threshold, as the mayor noted, is set at $300, which is really low. Right now, the state standard's $15,000, so we would be matching that. Other than that, I also want to thank Delegate Corman and his staff for putting this together so quickly, and we've got a really nice looking charter now, very well organized.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bolt. Colleagues, are there any questions of Delegate Corman and our witnesses? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing on MC 2026.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Sure,
you.
thank you.
And thank you, Chair Mayor Kuhn-North. And sorry for my lapse there about the committee assignment. And of course, this bill then next steps will be going to the Metro Washington Area Committee for discussion. Okay, next we do have one bill that was reported out of the Economic Development Committee this week, turning it over to Chair Foley for her committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Economic Development Committee of the Montgomery County Delegation is reporting favorable on House Bill 1247, which is PG 425-25, which you'll recall we heard last week in delegation. And the purpose of this is to alter the definition of extraordinary development district for adding provisions to the law for tax increment financing to include a certain immersive entertainment venue. Yes, this is the Sphere bill. The committee, as I said, reported out favorable with no amendments. Madam Chair, I move adoption.
Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you. Moved by Chair Foley, seconded by Vice Chair Wims. Discussion on the bill. And this is also a good time for folks who wish to be recorded as voting to get their cameras on, since we will likely be voting momentarily. Okay, not seeing any discussion or questions. All those in favor of PG 425-26, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, so that bill passes. And Delegate Ziegler, was that a lagging hand for an aye? Yes, okay, we're good. Delegate Vogel, are you?
Madam Chair, to explain my vote, do I have the opportunity to do that? All right, thank
I
you.
will allow it, yes.
Okay, great. I'm a yes on this. I do think that we should have a discussion around some of the labor protections and provisions here. But given that it is a delegation bill from a different county, then I think that conversation should happen in the Ways and Means Committee. But for now, I am a yes.
Okay, thank you. And yes, Chair Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on Delegate Vogel's point, this issue was raised in our committee by Delegate Solomon. We had quite a discussion about it with the Prince George's County officials, and it was clarified that they routinely do PLAs. I think it is their policy to do project labor agreements in the county. And so I think the committee was satisfied that the labor concerns would be addressed as this project moves forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Foley. Appreciate that and appreciate that your subcommittee had some discussion on that point as well. So that bill passes unanimously. And then that brings us to our last agenda item for today. We do have a statewide bill, HB 1071, that we've been asked by the Standing Committee, the Environment and Transportation Committee, to weigh in on because it has some provisions particular to Montgomery County. Let me turn it over to the bill sponsor, Delegate Foley, to just give the delegation an overview of the bill. And then you also had shared some amendments that I believe have been circulated by our administrator prior to this meeting. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill is being brought to the General Assembly on behalf of the delegations, Senate and House delegations from District 15 and District 14. And it involves the interpretation and application of stormwater management policies, both from MDE, from the Maryland Department of the Environment, and how those policies are implemented with respect to agricultural lands and agritourism across the state, but there is a specific provision regarding Montgomery County because there's a big problem with this in Montgomery County. It's the last part of the bill, and it does spell out some additional requirements for Montgomery County when the Maryland Department of Environment regulations are being implemented and enforced, and it basically includes the involvement of the Soil Conservation District. This was a request from many of the distilleries and wineries and other agritourism businesses we have in our ag reserve to us. And so I would ask, Madam Chair, that we approve or sign off on this portion of this bill, which will be heard in Environment and Transportation next week.
Thank you. And just to clarify, so it looks like Section 1 of the bill, which is the codified language, is statewide in nature in terms of addressing these types of stormwater permits, but really you're pointing to Section 2 of the bill for folks who are following along, the uncodified language. As you mentioned, that this is really just about ensuring that the county and the Soil Conservation District are consulted in the MDE process. Is that right to say?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then just to clarify for the delegation, so I think the way that we will frame this, and of course the chair of the standing committee is on here and he can hear this as well, is really what we are weighing in on is not the statewide portion of the bill, but just the part that is specific to Montgomery County. So with that, let me open it up, see if there's any question or discussion. Okay, not seeing any. Delegate Foley, do you want to make a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
For approval or
I guess for the delegation
to
send a letter of maybe we'll go with a motion for the delegation to send a letter of support specific to Section 2 of the bill.
Okay, I believe Delegate Frazier Doggo moved that, and I second it.
Great. And I will just echo that for council that motion was made by Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo and seconded by Delegate Foley. Now to discussion. Yes, Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Delegate Foley and Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo for doing an amazing job taking the lead on this for on behalf of our two delegations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, please be on camera if you wish to be recorded as voting. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. And just a reminder, colleagues, because we have had a few of these now, that if you are working on statewide legislation that may have a provision that is specific to Montgomery County or where the standing committee thinks that we need a letter from the delegation, please just come and let me know and we can put it on an agenda for the delegation to discuss and to take up going forward. That is the end of our formal agenda. Let me turn to our committee chairs for announcements. I know we have a lot of empty drawers at the moment, which is a good thing. Yes, Chair Mercury North.
Sorry, things are moving so fast. So in light of the hearing we had today, MC 2026 will be discussed in Metro Washington Area Committee, and we will set it for Monday at 1:30.
Great, thank you. Are any other committee chairs planning to meet next week? I don't believe that that's the case, but just double checking. Okay, any other announcements or anything else from any other delegation members before we adjourn? Okay, thank you all. Appreciate the participation